My test, 1, 2, 1, 2. Yep, cool.
This is going to be the 2-minute warning. They'll be here in 2 minutes.
Good afternoon, and thank you for coming. My name is Constable Phil Gavin. I'm one of the media relations officers here with the Niagara Regional Police. I'd like to make, first off, before we go too far, I'd like to make a correction on some of the information that's been released, that being in relation to Justin Kyers, the time of his arrest. He was arrested at 3:57 p.m. Central Time. That's 4:57 p.m. Eastern Standard for us. As you're aware, for the media release that went out last night on March 21st, this press conference will be about Justin Kyer investigation that has been ongoing by the Niagara Regional Police since the morning of March 17th. Following comments by Chief McGuire, there will be a formal 10-minute question period. I would like now to introduce the gentleman seated behind me. Niagara Regional Police Service Chief Jeff McGuire, who will be speaking on a prepared statement and also answering some questions. Seated with Chief McGuire is Niagara Regional Police Service Inspector Jim Prinzen, who's in charge of our investigative support division. Inspector Prinzen will assist in answering any investigative-related questions during the question period. Chief?
Thanks very much, Phil. First, I'd like to welcome everyone here to Niagara Regional Police Service Headquarters. I want to thank you all for taking the time to come here today. As Phil explained, I'm going to provide some information to you regarding the timeline of events over the past 5 or 6 days in relation to this occurrence that we're talking about today. First and foremost, I'd like to take time as well. I'm going to offer my thanks to the public and especially to the media, the tremendous assistance of the media and the public in this matter, and our many partners in policing and emergency services right across the country. So on Friday, March 17th at about 10 a.m., the NRPS received a 911 call, which we responded to report of an assault at the Royal Bank of Canada, located on Martindale Road in St. Catharines. Our one district frontline uniform officers attended on the scene, along with the Niagara Emergency Medical Health Services and the St. Catharines Fire Department. Very early on in that investigation, the officers learned that a 43-year-old Justin Kyer of St. Catharines had entered the bank, stabbed a female employee, and Kyer was then seen fleeing the scene in a dark gray 2009 Pontiac, Montana van, which you're all familiar with from the media and social media posters that we've been issuing. This victim was transported from the scene at the bank to a hospital where she remains in stable condition. It's believed that the RBC employee and Kyer were known to each other through professional dealings at the bank. So about the same time on March 17th, the NRPS, along with Niagara EMS, responded to an address on Queenston Street in St. Catharines for the report of a child in medical distress. That child was Nathan Dumas. Nathan was transported to the hospital in critical condition, and unfortunately, as you're aware, Nathan passed away in the early morning hours of March 18th. Our investigators determined that there was a link between the scene on Martindale Road and Queenston Street. That link was the van that Kyer was seen leaving the RBC in. On March 19th, 2017, as a result of the ongoing investigation by all of our detectives from across the service and led by our homicide unit, reasonable grounds were formed for the arrest of Kyer in relation to the murder of Nathan Dumas and the attempt murder of the RBC employee. As you're well aware, we made several appeals to the public through the media and to our law enforcement partners right across this country to assist in our search to locate and arrest Kyer and also to locate the van. Fortunately, yesterday, March 21st at about 3:57 p.m., 43-year-old Justin Kyer of St. Catharines was arrested by our colleagues with the Ontario Provincial Police in Kenora, Ontario, almost 2,000 kilometers away from St. Catharines. He was arrested on the strength of a Canada-wide warrant that had been applied for by the Niagara Regional Police Service Homicide Unit. Uniform officers from the Kenora Detachment of the OPP had responded to a 911 call from a member of the public who observed the Pontiac, Montana van. That van was located in a parking lot with Kyer inside. The officers attended and Kyer was arrested without incident. This is the thanks that I wanted to share with you. I spoke of earlier in relation to the assistance from the media. 2,000 kilometers and 5 days later, a normal citizen was able to act on the information that you assisted us in sharing right across the country. Kyer will be returned to the Niagara region today, where he'll face charges of first-degree murder in relation to the death of Nathan Dumas and attempted murder in relation to the attack on the RBC victim. He'll be attending a bail hearing in St. Catharines tomorrow. A couple of points that I just want to touch on. We spoke a little bit already in relation to the media issue, but the power of social media in this case, I've spent a little bit of time on social media. Some of you may know, but I was shocked myself to learn. In the last 5 days, we've had over 600,000 hits on social media, including Facebook and Twitter, in relation to this case. And you've heard me speak, in my opinion, on the impact that had on our ability to have Kyer brought into custody. The power of the media. As I said earlier, the media have been exemplary partners with us in this manhunt, keeping the face of Kyer on the front pages, on the newscasts, on all the live media streams, social media. It's because of those efforts that Kyer is in custody today, and the community is safer today than it was before his arrest yesterday. And just by way of note, some of you will know I had spent considerable time in Toronto Police before I came here. And yesterday I spoke to Christina Tenaglia from CP24. She happened to be in the parking lot when I was going home with a truck continuing to carry the story. And as I was leaving, she said to me, "Chief, we're going to make sure that you get this guy." And I'm sure that that was the thought of all the media in assisting us in keeping this on the front page. Both the RBC victim and the mother are both elated, obviously, at the news of the arrest. They've been informed by our investigators. And they both stated that they're overwhelmed at the community's support, the well wishes, and the outpouring of sympathy. Obviously, they both ask that their privacy be respected at this time in the days to come as they continue to heal and grieve. The community impact as well. We know who the primary victims are, and obviously the most important victims in these cases. But the spider web, if you will, I've often thought of it as a windshield cracking, where the lines of the spider web go out and impact every segment of the community. We're talking about school kids and teachers and neighbors and friends and relatives who are all impacted by this. I have a couple of comments that I want to read with you as well. Phil Gavin, through our social media, received a note this morning, I believe. And I'll read it for you. It's, "I wanted to write to thank you and for all your tiresome work on the Nathan Dumas case. I work at Harriet Tubman School and have seen firsthand the effect that this has had on the staff, the parents, and the classmates of Nathan's." He says, "But seeing the NRP there to protect our children and teachers these past couple of days has brought much comfort in this time of grieving. Thank you. Now we can all sleep easy tonight knowing that he has been caught and the family can grieve without fear." We also one of the investigators received a phone call, again talking about the power of social media and the importance of our partners. One of the detectives answered the phone, and it was two officers sitting on the side of the Trans-Canada Highway in Alberta to say that they're out looking for our van. The victim and her family would like to offer their condolences. This is the victim from RBC. She made a point of making sure and asked that I inform the media that she and her family want to offer their condolences to Nathan's family. And they'd like to thank the public for their assistance in apprehending Kyer. And she'd also like to thank the police for the work and dedication, the healthcare network for the treatment she has received, and her employer, RBC Financial, for all of the assistance and support that they have provided to the victim and her family. So all of that said, I've covered what I can. As I said at the beginning, as you know, there'll be lots of questions that you will have that you know you're going to get some of the standard answers in these types of press conferences, which are evidentiary in nature, that we're not going to be able to address, but if we can answer, we will. But please understand, and I know you will, that if we can't, we won't. So thank you very much.
Where's he been hiding the last 5 days?
Yeah, again, thank you. That's, again, part of the investigation. Quite frankly, that we'll have to try and develop the timeline. The investigators will be working hard on that, and I really don't know at this point or can't comment on that.
Chief, can you clarify the charges that you faced? When Officer Gavin gave his press conference on Sunday, saying that the warrant was going to be sought was first degree.
Right.
On Monday, that warrant was for second degree murder. Today, he said he was arrested on first. So can you just clarify what charges he actually faces?
Yeah, it is first degree. In fact, initially it was, but those developments come through discussions between the investigators, reviewing the evidence with the prosecutors to make application to the court. And at this time, the charge is first degree murder and attempt murder.
Chief, you seem kind of choked up as you're talking about this. Can you talk about your own psyche today after these past 5 days?
Well, first and foremost, I'm incredibly proud of the work that the men and women across our service have done. We also have concern for the things that our homicide unit and our forensic unit and people are exposed to from time to time. You know, you may know I spent 10 years in homicide in Toronto. These are not easy cases, and you know, truth of the matter is, I've said many times before, we're all humans before we became cops, and we got kids. I got grandkids.
How would you
Yes.
describe the reaction amongst the community over the past 5 days and the relief? You've read the social media messages, but that palpable sense of relief, I think, in this community, saying, no, the tires are gone.
Yeah, well, no, there's no question that there's a great relief, and there was also a great, obviously some spirit of fear during the time that he was not in custody. I mean, we had to take extraordinary steps to provide, not knowing where he was, not knowing what he might be up to or what his next plans were. We had to take steps to, as you heard from the school, at the school where the young boy went to, have a security plan there in place so people could feel some level of comfort. And you know, that's kind of an ironic or a double-edged thing. If you've got kids and you drop them off at school and you see the police are there to make you feel comfortable, it might make you feel comfortable, but it's got to put you on edge too as you drive away wondering what's going on. So I think this is, we don't run into this type of situation very often where we get into long-term kind of manhunts for what we believe obviously to be a very dangerous person, not knowing what the next steps might be. So I think the impact on the community was large, and I truly believe if you went out and polled the community, you'd hear a lot of exhales, and people are feeling safer today than they did yesterday.
Chief, are you looking for anybody else, any other suspects?
At this point, I mean, again, that would be evidentiary, but I could probably broadly say that they will be looking at what's gone on. Nothing else in relation to the actual incidents. Whether or not someone has assisted him in the past 5 days would be subject of investigation as well. But we don't know that, no. No, we don't, not at this point.
Chief, just a couple of things that maybe you might be able to answer. On Friday, when this all happened, can you give us any kind of sense as to how long it took and how police were able to connect the stabbing at the bank to the incident at the Dumas home in which Nathan was critically injured? And is there any further information that you're able to disclose about the motive behind the stabbing at the bank?
Yeah, other than that, I can't, because that specifically is motive, so I'll start with what I can't answer. But what we can tell you is that the victim was an employee of the bank, and the accused had dealt with that person in the past in relation to professional banking situation at the bank. That's as much as we know at this point. No other connection that we're aware of. The connection between the two calls, I think they were only about 15 or 20 minutes apart at best. We got the call to the bank, and we made the connection because of witnesses there with the accused and the van. And the van is connected to the address, and when the officers learned that, hey, there's something serious going on Queenston Street, they knew that that was the same van that was registered to the person seen leaving.
Was that a sort of the normal investigative process that the officers at the bank are running information on the van, which brings you back to Queenston Street, where you've already got officers on scene for a child in distress?
Yeah, you know, without getting into the specific details, but I think probably exactly what happened, was that the plate, you know, the vehicle was seen, the registration was broadcast, the description, and there's officers on the same band in the same city, hearing each other at different calls, going, hey, wait a minute, that's the address we're at. That brings that connection together, and then the rest of it would be investigative at this point that I can't talk about, but develop from there.
And then finally, the Sunday briefing we had, Officer Gavin pointed out that decal on the back of the van. Do you have any idea if that additional detail assisted somebody up in Kenora to recognize this was the
I'm not sure about the decal, but that person called 911 because that person knew that that was the van we were looking for. So,
You understand that he had recently been turned down for a loan at that bank. Was that part of what happened that instigated this?
if that is true, I don't know that at this point. If it is, that might speak to motive, and I wouldn't answer you anyway, so, unfortunately.
Can you confirm it was a Walmart parking lot, and was it a Walmart employee, or is that not true?
It was apparently in a Walmart parking lot, but I don't think we're saying anything about identifying the person that called in at this point. Yeah, my understanding is, I've been advised that it was arrested without incident. It was in the parking lot there, and I was happy to have heard that I believe there were 6 OPP officers from the Kenora detachment on scene. And so it sounds to me like they executed a very good arrest, and our understanding is that there was no incident at the time of arrest, and he's in custody and in fact is in the process of being returned here to our region now. He should be back in the region today. And before bail court in St. Catharines tomorrow morning. I'm sorry? Yeah, our partners with the Ontario Provincial Police, I had the opportunity last night to speak with the Acting Commissioner Brad Blair, because Vince Hawks is out of the country right now, and they were very cooperative. They had by luck as well, normally it would take a little longer, but they would always help us. They had a plane coming this way anyway, so we'll be making arrangements to pick them up north somewhere, but not as far north as he was. I suspect he appeared before JP to be remanded in custody.
That was a plan. I don't know that that's happened yet, but he will be appearing for remand before he's.
That I don't know, and I wouldn't tell you that either. So you're not having a good day. You're always welcome, man. Always. Yeah.
Over the weekend, I think it might have been Sunday or Monday, there were these unconfirmed sightings of the van. I think it was Highway 400. Was it Phil? Given that he's been arrested and how far he managed to travel before he was caught, is there any thought that those sightings may now have in fact been legitimate, or are we not able to know that?
We don't know for sure at this point, but all of that whole timeline will be investigated because, respectfully, I would think all of that is post-conduct behavior. If it's part of flight, then we will want to be able to track him as far as he went and present that evidence to the court as well.
Chief, if I can,
That's right. I'll just let Jim finish off
I
that.
can just add to that. My understanding from the investigators, we've had about 65 tips as far as sightings of either Mr. Kyer or the van. And those tips have come from the East Coast, the West Coast, and many, many places in between. What I can say, the specific sighting that you're referring to, we've been able to say that was unsubstantiated. It was not Mr. Kyer.
Chief, was anybody helping him? Are you looking at that?
Well, we're looking into that. Again, we don't know at this point. Our investigators have not even yet had the opportunity to speak with the accused, so we'll work on that. The OPP are returning him most of the distance by air, and then we'll be picking him up and bringing him by vehicle to court.
Do we know where he was headed? Did you say?
Don't.
Where he was going other than away?
North.
Yeah, no.
I honestly, we really don't know at this point.
Chief, you mentioned you had grandchildren. You mentioned the relief in the community in terms of the fact that Kyer has now been arrested. How would you explain this case to the grandchildren? Because we talked to the parents today about how they try to explain what's happened. They see police officers at school. They see all the media here. How do you explain to parents? How do you advise parents explain this kind of case to children?
I guess at that age, in my own case, I have 3 daughters and now 1 grandson, and I had obviously my 3 daughters were probably around that age, and a lot of the time that I was working homicide and dealing with cases like this, and unfortunately, a lot of the time is you don't talk about a lot of this stuff when you're at home, but if it happens in your neighborhood and involves here, I think my advice to parents would be to try and, refresh with their young kids the importance of a good relationship with the police officer, recognize the police officer is there, that's someone to help you. And when I say that, I mean, at the school, I don't know exactly what the plan was, but it wasn't like a guarded camp. It's just that we had to be there and they would see us. So, I mean, it's all good and very difficult parenting skills is all it is. And it's, it's a terrible world at times, obviously, and we have to find ways to explain these things to our children without over-alarming.
Can you tell us how big this family is holding up
Well, they're in the, I mean, they have been thankful. Early on in the investigation, we received, obviously, the investigators were in close contact with them, but they still have a funeral to deal with later this week, and they've lost a child. So, again, my experience in the cases that I've been involved in is that these things just don't get better. They may get better incrementally, but it's just a huge unthinkable void in everyone's life to have to deal with something like that. So we do have victim services here in the region, which we rely heavily upon. And, you know, if they're not engaged at this point, we'll make everything possible available to the family to assist them in that matter.
What can you tell us about the relationship status between Kyer and Nathan Dumas's mother on Friday? Were they breaking up? Were they broken up? Do you know?
That I can't comment on. I'm not sure. The investigators probably don't want to comment on that at this point.
I know that you haven't seen him yet, but is there any indication that he changed his appearance at all?
Not that I'm aware of, no. No.
And the suspect, is he father to one or two children?
Do we
My
know that?
understanding is he was father to two of the children.
So good?
I'm not sure. I can
We'll
get
give him a
that
last call,
information
or-
for you later.
Okay, we're,
Updates on the RBC employee, or she been released from hospital?
no, she's still in a hospital, but she did send that message today of thanks and encouragement. So I think we expect her to make a full recovery at some point, but significant injuries for sure. So kind of last call here, and then we're going to call it. Thank you once again, and I did sincerely mean, and the investigators do, thank the media for the work that was done. I mean, it simply would not be in custody right now if we had not had that broadcast. I can't remember a case I've seen where in that amount of time, because of the social media push and the ability to keep that picture in people's faces for 5 days, right across the province and 2,000 kilometers away is significant. And, you know, like, who knows, we could have been here 6 months from now wondering where he is. And so I really thank all of you for your assistance in helping us resolve this matter to this point. Thanks.
So that will conclude our press conference for today. Thank you very much for coming. If you have further follow-up questions, you could send them to the media inquiry at niagarapolice.ca, and we can attempt to address them, obviously not being able to go near evidentiary issues. So thank you very much. Take care.